Hi folks, it's been way too long since my last video, so here I'm at it again. I shoot 5.56 in my 223. I do it quite regularly, and I believe it's a safe practice, and here's why. 5.56 is a hotter loaded cartridge than the 223, but the 5.56 and 223 both shoot to about the same velocities with about the same pressures in their respective rifles. That's because the 5.56 is essentially just a 223 chamber with a little extra space on the front. It's basically just a looser version chamber of the 223. Or you could say that the 223 is basically just a tighter version of a 5.56 chamber. So that's kind of the way you can think about it. Because the 5.56 chamber is a looser chamber, it has extra space up front, which was designed for fitting those longer bullets that the military likes to play around with, and so it helped to run, well, poorer quality ammunition during wartime production. Because of that, the 5.56 cartridge requires a little bit more powder to keep up to the same pressures and velocities as a 223, because they wanted the military, when they designed it, wanted the 5.56 to have the same velocities and internal pressures as the 223. They made the chamber a little bit bigger and more spacey, a little looser, so they had to add a little more powder to take up that slack. Tighter chambers means higher pressure and higher velocities. So the 223 being a tighter chamber than the 5.56, if I load it up with 5.56 ammunition, it's going to shoot hotter, faster, and more pressured. How much more pressured? Well, my 16-inch barrel AR here, with standard full metal jacket, military style 223 ammo. In fact, I shoot a lot of Lake City military production, but 223. It shoots at about 3,000 feet per second. Plus or minus, I average around 3,000 feet per second with military type 223 ammo. If I shoot 5.56 in here, it shoots at about 150 feet per second faster, which is a slight edge if we're talking going for a distance or extending the killing potential of the cartridge slightly. But in terms of pressure, that's not a large difference at all. I know hand loaders that like to push way beyond that and get much faster velocities than 3150 out of even a 16-inch barrel AR. So unsafe? No, I wouldn't say so. There is a potential for compounding for things that compound up and create an unsafe situation. I'll explain those here. That is, yes, you are dealing with a slightly hotter cartridge. Slightly more pressure in the chamber when I stick a 5.56 into my 223. And generally it's something like between 8 and 12% more pressure. Well, you're dealing with more pressure already. If we get a 5.56 that was loaded a little on the hot side, now we're going to increase that up a little more. Now if we get a 223 chamber that's created just a little bit on the tight side, well, that's another tolerance stacked up against it. And then if I take that gun and it's really hot, either from some serious rapid fire, or a friend of mine had an issue recently where his rifle, possibly it just got too hot sitting in the sun, I'm not quite sure, but the gun had some overpressuring issues. So the gun gets hot from sitting in the sun or from rapid fire, the metals expand, your tolerances are tighter, the chamber's tighter, and it's now going to be a little higher pressure yet. So if you combine all of that also with the right type of flaw in materials in the rifle itself, then you can get into where you're potentially creating an unsafe scenario. Basically, if your rifle's barrel isn't like ridiculously hot, you really aren't going to ever have an issue with this at all. I wouldn't do like several mag dumps in a row with 5.56 because that's even a little closer to what you'd call unsafe. But for just general range work, I'm fine with it. There's no reason not to shoot 5.56 in your 223. When you're dealing with a full-length rifle, you're going to get more velocity than I do out of the 16-inch barrel. Excuse me. Tickle in the throat. But really, you're not getting close to that danger level. These things are pressure tested. These barrels and chambers, These barrels are pressure tested at around 86, 87,000 psi, I believe. And the operating pressures with the 5.56 in the 223 is around 62 to 67,000 psi, depending on variables there. So you aren't getting anywhere near what would be considered failure level at all, unless you have several problems stacking up on each other. So basically, if the barrel's not ridiculously hot, it's fine. So maybe don't do too many mag dumps in a row if you're shooting 5.56 in a 223 chamber. Now, I've probably shot around 1,000 to 1,200 rounds of 5.56 in this rifle. I've never had one issue. Initially in the beginning, when I was still nervous about it, I kept a really close eye on the brass coming out of the rifle, and I always inspected it for any signs of overpressuring whatsoever, and I never saw one. I never saw any aggressive ejector marks, any large scratches or gouges around the rim. I never saw any deformation whatsoever with the primer. No trouble at all. So there you have it. This is pretty much a safe procedure. Don't let the barrel get too hot. Really, that's the only thing that could compound it beyond a safe level, is if the barrel is ridiculously hot and the chamber swells up. Then, you load the ammunition in, and the brass swells up more than steel. So that brass sits in your hot chamber, which is quite hot, and it swells up to the point where, now your tolerances are even tighter yet. Don't let your barrel get overheated. You may notice a slightly increased wear on the barrel, a little more throat erosion. Between something like, you were dealing like approximately 10% more pressure, so that's approximately 10% more throat erosion. Basically, that means that this rifle, if I only ever shot 5.56 in it instead of 223, I would be working with a maximum barrel life of something like 6,500 rounds. That's still quite a lot of shooting. I don't really see a problem there. So basically, yes, I believe it's safe. I'm not telling you should or have to do this, but I would definitely say you can, take this information and just, consider it. Take it into account and see about what you can do for your own self. Oh, hey, before I go, don't forget to check out guntradition.com. I've been adding a lot of great informative articles there. I've been writing a lot of articles recently about the AR-15. Some pretty good stuff there. Check it out. I write a lot of information there. Alright, well, I'll catch you guys later. Stay well regulated and be safe. Bye now.